Well, hello to all our learners from all around the world. It's Craig and Richard here, and it's great to be with you on this first week of the course, the first feedback video. Tremendous. And there's lots of great practice and discussion and questions, Richard. And one question around, well, what is mindfulness, and is it absorption or is it something else?
Craig, I'm loving this. We've got learners in this course who've been with us since the first course we ran in 2015. This is the 21st time they've done this, right? So I think some of our learners probably know more about mindfulness now than we do, and they're paying attention to things that we've said. And so it was a really good pickup, actually, because I was talking about, there are these definitions of mindfulness, paying attention on purpose to the present moment, and of course these attitudes of non-judgment and acceptance and openness. I like to emphasize a full engagement with life, though. It's not about sitting around on a cushion being fully aware of thoughts and emotions necessarily. It's not just about that. It's also about being fully in life. And I did use the word absorbed in each moment. And it's a good pickup, actually, because absorption states, if we lose ourselves in something, I guess perhaps there is a sense that maybe we've lost our overall mindfulness. So I guess if we step back from that, it is about being fully engaged in whatever we're doing, and our attention might become absorbed in something for a moment, but at the same time, we've got that ability perhaps just to zoom out and also be aware of our surroundings. And sometimes I think mindfulness can be, you use the metaphor sometimes of like a torch that's shining on something, and then you unscrew it and you've got the bare light bulb that's just kind of illuminating everything. So I think that's a pretty good way to think about it.
Yeah, that sort of sense of focused attention, and I think light's a great metaphor for attention or awareness. You put it in a torch, as you said, and you shine it on a particular point. Call that concentration, I suppose, or focused attention, rather than the open awareness. And you might be very focused, getting up to the top of a mountain, watching, putting your foot on the rocks and taking care. And then you get to the top and all of a sudden your view opens out, and that open awareness. And they're both states of attention. And different contexts, different situations require one or other, depending on what we're doing. And but being in the moment, just as you say, Richard, with whatever is presenting. And there was another, I think, interesting point that was raised about that meant to be fully aware of what you're doing and so on, but this sort of sense of the difference between being conscious and being self-conscious.
It's a great distinction, isn't it?
Yeah, we're conscious, that is engaged, but we're not thinking about ourselves. And this sort of sense of being self-conscious, and even when we're learning mindfulness and we're practicing it, and all of a sudden the mind chips in with, oh, look at me, I'm really conscious, I'm really paying attention now, this is great, it's really working, it's like, it's going to change my life. And all of a sudden we're just in our heads again, thinking about being mindful. And that self-conscious is attention turning in, as opposed to attention open and engaged, but even just aware of our state of mind. Also, people have been getting into the formal practice as well, and noticing how much the mind wanders, Richard.
Yeah, well, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, it's just the moment you sit down and meditate, you notice that the mind's wandered. And of course, as we say repeatedly over and over again in this course, that's mindfulness. Great. You're noticing, hey, this mind of ours, it wanders off all the time. And our learners have been noticing that during meditation, but also during everyday activities. And of course, there's that classically just hilarious example that comes up often in our courses, that people find themselves watching these videos while thinking about something else. Someone else was on another website at the same time. And it was good observation, actually, because they noticed that they were splitting their attention. They shut the other website, brought their full attention back to the video where we were talking about, hey, pay attention to one thing at a time, ironically. And they noticed the tension and stress in their body that had come from trying to, do multiple things and overwhelming themselves cognitively. And so it's a really great example. And of course, the important point here is that it's normal for the mind to wander off. Noticing that is a really important first step. And the really important second step is not to judge that or be self-critical about how distracted we are, because in a sense, that is just more thinking. It's more default mode activity. The whole point is to notice without judgment and just reorient the attention to the present. And if you do that 8 million times a day, great. It's 8 million mindful moments in a day, which is exactly what we're going for.
Yes, and if we do that 8 million times a day, where we come in with a criticism and we're trying to force the mind, then it kind of gets to be hard work. Whereas if we see it 8 million times a day, we can let go of what we don't need to be thinking about.
Yeah.
Then there's a kind of restfulness and a kind of freedom that comes with practicing mindfulness. If it's hard work, we're probably wrestling with the mind rather than just letting go of what we don't need to be preoccupied.
That's correct. And, you know, Craig, there are some black belt meditators. I mean, you know, when you get sometimes like Buddhist monks and stuff who've done like 60,000 hours of meditation in their life, you can put them in a brain scanner and they can keep their attention pretty much in one place without letting it move at all. But for most people, and I include myself in this, and I'm sure you probably include yourself, it's not that our minds don't wander anymore, even though we've been practicing mindfulness 20, 30, 40 years or whatever. It's just that we perhaps notice more easily when they do, and we bring them back without judgment, and we end up spending more time in the present. But it's not about, you know, meditation stopping the mind from ever wandering off. So we want to just let go of that expectation, perhaps.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. And fatigue, Craig, I mean, there are lots of sources right now of fatigue, and there were some interesting comments around that.
Yes, and fatigue can mean, you know, different things, just being overwhelmed with all the stuff that's been happening with COVID and lockdowns, for example, or just fatigue in terms of tiredness. But because we're mindful doesn't mean that all of a sudden we won't experience fatigue. We might notice there's less fatigue because we're less activating the stress response than we otherwise would have, less rumination leading to stress. So we might notice that there's less fatigue, but fatigue turns up. We're human. But what we can do is be mindful of the fatigue. We can notice it. And sometimes being present means just stop, just give myself a break. You know, you've been working for a long time, and, you know, a lot of people are on screens much more than usual. And you notice the mind's fatigue and you realize what is needed in the present moment, not to try and, you know, force the attention back, but you realize, no, right here and now, I need some mental downtime. I need to walk around the block and just feel the breeze in my face and just hear the sound of the birds. I need to just maybe even just sit back in a chair and put my feet up and have a little mindful few minutes. You might have a little unmindful few minutes in the form of a power nap within a couple of minutes, but to recognize what we now. I remember as a junior doctor, though, doing very long shifts, and sometimes, you know, in the middle of the night, you're going without sleep for hours and hours and hours and hours, and just being aware of the eye-hand coordination, not so good, and just being aware of the fatigue. But I can remember being very mindful of that, and it helped me to increase my vigilance while working to help prevent errors. Because if we're not mindful, the fatigue's there, but we're oblivious to it. And that's very easy to just blunder in and make errors without even noticing. And so, so being mindful doesn't mean that we won't experience fatigue, but maybe we can just be with it and embrace it in our awareness without getting...
Be with it with curiosity, and also be interested in, like, what's the source of the fatigue? I mean, what's happening in the mind, or what's happening in our behaviors that's giving rise to this? Is it not enough sleep? Is it stressing ourselves out? Is it trying to control things we can't control right now? I mean, there are so many reasons we might be feeling fatigued. And then, of course, informal practice. So this is really where the rubber hits the road. You do the meditation on the cushion, and then the out of the cushion practice is the informal practice, and it's bringing mindfulness to everyday experiences. And someone said, you know, I can see, you know, the importance of mindful relationships and work, you know, paying attention to our conversations and work and stuff like that. But why would I do the dishes mindfully? Great question, right? But, you know, there is that study that we talk about often in this course that, you know, where they got university students for a week to wash the dishes mindfully. And what they found was that at the end of the week, those students they had higher trait mindfulness. So they'd actually train their mindfulness just by doing the dishes once or twice a day in a mindful way. But they also had higher levels of positive affect. They were happier. They were just more outgoing. They had less negative affect, like anxiety and stress. And it just, I mean, we are what we practice. This is Aristotle 101. We are what we repeatedly do. And so if we're doing the dishes, rushing through them, thinking about what we want to get onto next, or we're thinking, why the hell are there so many goddamn dishes in my house all the time? Where do they keep coming from? That's literally creating stress in the mind, you know? And if we just wash the damn dishes, then we're just washing the dishes. And even though, I mean, the students actually described, some of them, that it was a more enjoyable experience. They had time dilation. They got through it faster. You know, time kind of sped up. or maybe slowed down. So it's, it changes the experience anyway. And I would pose it back to that learner and to all the learners in this course. Just do an experiment. Notice how you're washing the dishes. Notice how you're doing household chores. In fact, notice how you're doing anything that you do. And are you doing it mindfully or unmindfully? And what's the sort of the experience that you have in both of those modes? If you're washing the dishes in an unmindful way, rushing through it, how does your body feel? What's happening in your mind afterwards? If you just wash the dishes, how do you feel at the time? How do you feel afterwards? And what's the difference? I think that'd be a great way of answering that question.
Yeah, and I think being aware of that internal dialogue running alongside the dishes, just to notice that, why do I want to be doing the dishes? I can't stand the dishes, and just let that go and connect with the sensory, tactile experience. One of the other things to often say, working with professional groups who've got demanding jobs, or, people have just got demanding life at home and homeschool, is that when we're doing something relatively mundane like the dishes, it's an opportunity for some mental downtime. Walking down the corridor is either walking with rumination and thinking about how many things we've got to do, or it's just walking where we give ourselves some mental downtime. And if we keep these simple moments simple, we've got lots of opportunities for mental downtime. So the brain's not cooked at the end of the day. Well, we also cultivate that calmer, more attentive state of mind to take into the next complex thing in our day, in our work or at home. And so anyway, just bounce it right back to the learners. Yeah, do the experiment, explore. Don't take anything we say, just, oh, well, that's how it is, but do the experiment for yourself and make your own decision. So anyway, it's a great start to the course, and we'll look forward to being with everybody next week and hearing how people are going. Please follow Sherelle. She'll be providing feedback and so on, and supporting learners along the way. And we'll look forward to hearing what arises over this next week of Living Mindfully.
We sure will. See you next week.